your hands together for Dr. Subramanian Swamy, our distinguished guest speaker today. To begin the afternoon, I would like to request Dr. Swamy to please come and light the lamp. Ganju to please felicitate our distinguished guest as well in his fight. It's an honor and privilege to welcome Dr. Subramanian Swamy, who is here to speak to the community about how to preserve our heritage in today's challenging times. To begin today's program, I would like to say something about the man and the mind behind today's event. He is none other than a very well-known personality of the South Florida Kashmiri Hindu community, Mr. Deepak Ganju.
Thank you, everybody. I would like to speak in Hindi, which is our national language, and welcome Swamiji, who has come all the way from India, and Miami is his first stop. So it's an honor for all of us. आदरणीय स्वामी जी एवं मित्रों, आज हमारे लिए बहुत ही गौरव का दिन है कि आज भारतीय संस्कृति विरासत की बहुआयामी गुणवत्ता का उद्घाटन करने हेतु अपना बहुमूल्य समय निकालकर हमें गौरवान्वित करने के लिए स्वामी जी यहाँ पधारे हैं। स्वामी जी भारत के उन दिग्गजों में से हैं जिन्होंने राजनीति के साथ साथ भारतीय संस्कृति का पुनर्जागरण करने में अपने कर्मठ स्वभाव से भारत माता की निष्काम भाव से अनुप्राणित किया है। आप अपने में चाणक्य की भांति शिक्षा शास्त्री भी हैं और राजनीतिज्ञ भी हैं। जिस प्रकार चाणक्य तक्षशिला में आचार्य रहे, उसी प्रकार स्वामी जी हार्वर्ड में भी आचार्य रहे और भारत को एक सूत्र में बांधने का जो सपना चाणक्य का था, वही स्वामी जी का भी सपना है। और उसी सपने को पूर्ण करने के लिए स्वामी जी भारत में बहुत भ्रमण करते हैं और विदेश में भी भ्रमण कर रहे हैं। और जैसे मैंने आपको बोला कि हमारे सौभाग्य की बात है कि मायनी उनका पहला पड़ाव है उस भ्रमण यात्रा में। स्वामी जी आपका बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। इंडियंस इन डायस्पोरा, भारतीय प्रवासियों को आप पर गर्व है, नाज है। शक्ति भी, शांति भी, गरिमा भी आपकी वाक शक्ति में है। And Dr. Swamy is so well known that he need not to be introduced with his resume. I would however like to speak of him in the context of our topic of the day, which is preserving Hindu heritage in challenging times. It needs a special person to speak his mind on this topic, and only a person who has a research background and intellectual insight could deliver a meaningful and actionable talk. Kashmir has a very important and significant role in Swamiji's life. Swamiji has been to Srinagar recently, and he was telling me yesterday that he had a lecture in a press conference in Lal Chowk, which is a terrorist-ridden area, and he stayed in a hotel in Lal Chowk area because we know that area very well. And he had the guts to be in that area, and people there sang, I think, Bharat Mata ki Jai, Sare Jahan se Acha Hindustan Hamara. So that is the change which Swami on the streets can bring. And we are really proud of him. We are really very fortunate that he is here amongst us today. And
now I would like to invite a very well-known and senior member of the South Florida Hindu community, a person who has been actively involved and has been working tirelessly for numerous community events in South Florida for a long time. Is none other than Dr. Agarwal ji. Dr. Agarwal, could you please come forward and address the meeting?
I am really honored to say a few words about Dr. Swamy. This is the second occasion when I have to introduce Dr. Swamy. It was about 37 years ago when I first introduced Dr. Swamy formally at the Brown University, and I was living in Rhode Island and he was visiting this country. That was a very challenging and critical time. Swamy doesn't need any introduction, and since then we have met many times, but the work he did during emergency was phenomenal because of his knowledge and connection in this country. He could mobilize and organize the group who were fighting against the democracy, against the emergency and for the democracy. So I had a good fortune to see his working. I was young, of course, much younger, and he was also much younger, but I was. So enough has been told. He doesn't need any introduction about his scholarship, political acumen, and the fighting, constant fighting for the country and the Hindu cause. But what he has done during the last 15 years, he is exposing fearlessly number of scandals, and he has been successfully brought some people to the courts, and they have been convicted, even many ministers. And even now, he is fighting and continuing his fight. And most recent addition to his achievements is that he has been exposing or asking for the review of a shoddy deal done between Jet Airline and the Etihad. Many people may not know. As I told you, Hindu culture is at stake. And I would, without taking too much time, I'll ask Dr. Swamy how to preserve, and not only preserve, to make it forceful and vital as it used to be, and give his margin to us. Thank you very much.
Mr. Ganju, I should say also Mrs. Ganju, members of this Miami Indian community, I'm privileged to be here and see you all, meet with you and exchange some ideas. I'll make a presentation on the topic, and then if you have any questions, I'll be able to answer. Heritage is a legacy of customs, traditions, history. It's also part of your geographical scenery. So it is a multidimensional concept. And if one were to say Indian heritage, it is distinguishable from all other heritages on a number of accounts. We are the longest civilization continuing civilization in the world. All other civilizations, there were 46 civilizations that have been recorded in history. 45 have terminated. Example, Egypt is now a new civilization of the Islamic world. Greece is a new civilization of the Christian world. They have no connection except you can see ruins. But this Indian civilization, by which I mean Hindu civilization, is a continuing civilization, unbroken. And we have to go back and see why India has survived. And it's not survived because nobody troubled us or we were living in a cocoon. We were brutally attacked. We were ruled by foreigners for centuries. 800 years of Islamic rule, 200 years of Christian rule in the form of British imperialist rule. And yet, you are still a predominantly Hindu country. When I was teaching at Harvard, I had a student from Saudi Arabia who one day asked for time after class. And after class, he asked me a question, which he said his university in Jeddah had asked him to ask me. And he said that we want to know that how is it that after 800 years of Islamic rule and 200 years of Christian rule, India is still such a large predominantly, that is over 80% Hindu population. So I was taken aback by the question. I said, could you explain why you're asking me this question? So he said, we are studying Islamic history. We found that when Islam went to Iran, in 15 years they converted the whole of Iran, which was Zoroastrian till then, into 100% Muslim country. By the usual technique which Islamic invasions have employed elsewhere and employed in India too, of brutality, killing, offering a choice, either you're dead or you convert, etc. etc. Next to Iran is about two civilizations of Mesopotamia and Babylon, which now is known as Iraq. In 17 years it became 100% Muslim. Egypt became 100% Muslim in 21 years. Europe became 100% Christian in 50 years. But here you have 800 years of Muslim rule and 200 years of Christian rule, and still you're over 80% Hindu. What is the secret? That's what he wanted to know. Of course, Taliban nowadays says that India, Hindustan is a unfinished chapter of Islamic history. Well, they'll find out who's going to be finished in the end. But this rankles the hardline Islamic historians. And therefore, this heritage is under attack in a number of ways. During these 1,000 years, let me tell you that this propagation amongst our youth, that we were a country who were always brutalized, whoever came here, we ruled here, India was all the time conquered. The British used to say, well, we have one more conquest of India. But the fact is that India, or the Hindus in particular, kept the struggle going. Whether they lost or won, it didn't matter. And they were recognized as heroes in Indian history by the Indian community, the Hindu community, whether he won or lost. Take Rana Pratap. He was reduced to eating chapati made out of grass. And yet he held on. His cousin brother Mansingh came from Jaipur and said to him that I have a message from Akbar. You declare him as Badshah of India and he will return everything to you, all your palaces, everything. Like he has done with me. So what is the difficulty? Just you call him, you accept him as Badshah of India, which he is. So Rana Pratap said, no, I will not accept. So he said, what, you're going to spend the rest of your life eating ghas ki roti? So Rana Pratap said, when when he further added Mansingh, what will you get out of this? He said, what I will get out of this is that future generations, mothers will name their sons as Rana Pratap or no name their spirit. Now you take the case of Rani Jhansi. She also lost in battle. Subhash Bose, in Tamil Nadu, Kattaboman. In Karnataka, we had Rani Chennamma. So every part of India, every district, people were perpetually in revolt, which is not recorded in our history books. And of course we had victors also. We had Shivaji, the Vijayanagara Empire, which lasted 300 years. I went all the way to the borders of Assam. And despite it lasting 300 years, in the history books you will only see one small paragraph. Then in South India there was a empire called Vijayanagara. From Akbar to Aurangzeb is only 150 years. But 1 chapter for each Badshah is being given credit which they didn't deserve. So I would say that, you see, this glory of our history, of our heritage, we have to first learn in order to preserve it. We were the richest country in the world at one stage, that is as late as 1200 AD. India accounted for 52% of the world GDP. Today, India accounts for 7%. India and China accounted together more than 50% of the world GDP right up to 1750. All our progress in science is now recognized slowly. If you read George Gamau's book, 1, 2, 3, Infinity, or George Werner Braun, George Werner Braun, who came from Germany and laid the foundation for rocketry in America, he begins his book by saying, we owe rocketry to the Hindus of India. Einstein said the Hindus of India taught us how to count. Because we invented the zero, we invented the decimal, we invented algebra. It was called algebra because the Arabs took it from us and then the Europeans took it from the Arabs. So there was no area of human life where we were not so far as it is possible. And we were so far ahead that people came from all over the world to buy goods from India. If you ever come to Harvard University in the suburb area called Belmont, there is a huge lake called Fresh Pond. And they put a road around the pond so you can go for a morning walk. So when I went around the morning walk, I noticed a signboard which was standing there on the edge of the pond. Here stood Tudor Ice Company, which exported ice to India. And the date is 1636. Now I was a bit surprised, why would America export ice to India? So I went to Google and discovered there was one book about Tudor Ice Company. I read it and I cross-checked it and I found that every year from Salem, Massachusetts, boats used to go to India, to Kanchipuram. And in Kanchipuram they would buy cloth and spices and everything and come back. One day the Chola king of Kanchipuram called them and said, are you being looked after, are you comfortable, etc. Is there anything I can do for you? So they said, we have one complaint that we have to come with empty ships, we buy your goods and go back, why can't you buy something from us? So the king said, I can't, India produces everything, but there's nothing I can buy from you. They said, no, you can buy something from us. That is when the king said, I hear that, I have never seen ice in my life. Because Kanchipuram is a hot place, no? I'd have to go to Himalayas. That's a long distance for me to go. I'd like to see ice. So I hear in your country ice falls naturally from the sky. So if you bring ice, I will buy it. So in that fresh pond, it freezes during the winter. They used to cut the lake, put sawdust and take it all the way to India. And so the first export from United States to India was ice. That was the status of United States compared to India. So I am saying to you, this is the heritage we have. Fascian, the Chinese traveler, he came to India, lived 11 years, traveled all over India, and he wrote a book saying that the most significant quality of a Hindu, he said, is his honesty. There is absolutely no corruption in India. People don't lock their doors when they go out in the night. And he said, if you go to their house and leave something behind by mistake, they will chase you and find you and return it to you. Never have I seen anywhere else in the world like this. The same thing is repeated by Yuan Chuang, who came 700 years later from China, from Vasco da Gama. Vasco da Gama also records it. And right up till about 1700, we find that the significant remarks made about India included the honesty of the Indian people. Today, if some visitor comes, he is not going to say that. What has happened? If a people could have been so rich, prosperous, honest, then what has transformed? So I begin by saying that in order to know how to preserve your heritage, you must know what your heritage is. And because of Macaulay,